Hello, and welcome to the Hospice Advantage Volunteer Training Program. My name is Jerry Lynn Estrada, and I am the Manager of Family Support Services. I am here today to provide you with the required training so that you can become a Hospice Advantage volunteer. I would like to start by thanking you for taking the time out of your busy schedule to attend this important training and express my deep appreciation for the fact that you are willing to help us make the most of every moment our patients have remaining. Hospice is a special way of caring for people approaching the end of life. Hospice provides support and care for persons in the last phases of incurable disease so that they may live as fully and as comfortably as possible. Hospice offers palliative care to the terminally ill by providing physical, social, spiritual, and emotional care to patients and their families 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, in home and facility settings. The National Hospice and Palliative Care Organization defines palliative care as treatment that enhances comfort and improves the quality of the patient's life. In addition to the above philosophy, at Hospice Advantage, our philosophy is care, comfort, and compassion for the whole family. Hospice care for us is not only about treating the patient at the end of life, which is certainly a priority, it is also about helping the families. Our intention is to find out who the patient considers their family and provide them with needed support during the patient's time with us and continue that support long after the patient is deceased. Patient, family, and caregivers. The care of people living with serious illness is a process that involves the patient, family, and hospice caregivers. Hospice patients need to be surrounded by caring people in a caring community. As a result, the patient, family, and hospice caregivers constantly interact in order to provide the best possible care. One myth that has been adopted by the American population is that when cure is no longer possible, nothing more can be done. The hospice philosophy proposes that there is still a great deal that can be done through palliative care. Through constant interaction, the hospice team, including the patient's physician, provides quality palliative care to patients and their families in a caring community. Coordination of care. Coordination of care is essential in assuring that the palliative care goals established by the patient, family, and hospice care team are carried out among team members and across care settings. From the home to the nursing home to the hospital and to any other care setting, hospice philosophy emphasizes the need for one well-communicated and coordinated palliative plan of care. The hospice team coordinates care within their own organization and provides a link with healthcare and human service professionals in the community. Hospice coordinates care between nurses, psychosocial professionals, spiritual care providers, physicians, volunteers, hospitals, and other community resource organizations as needed to care for patients and families. Supportive physical environment. When patients are asked about their ideal environment in the final stages of their lives, their responses include items that signify life, nature, and provide life review, such as pictures of their family and friends. A supportive physical environment contributes to the well-being of patients, families, and hospice caregivers. The environment should reflect the patient's lifestyle in that they are surrounded by not only their loved ones, but also their physical belongings and symbols of their life. While most patients prefer to die at home, some reside in other care settings. Nursing homes and residential care settings can incorporate a feeling of well-being while creating a home-like appearance and extending visiting hours and by encouraging family participation in patient activities. A supportive physical environment also allows for flexibility in schedules. Allowing choices in a patient's environment gives that patient control and supports quality of remaining life. Curative care focuses on quantity of life and prolonging of life. Death is often seen as a failure to cure. Palliative care focuses on quality of life, and death is viewed as a natural part of life. Within this philosophy, hospice gives patients and families choices regarding resuscitative measures. Quality of life is often elusive if a patient is subjected to treatments and interventions that he or she did not choose, such as respirators, intravenous infusion, and tube feedings. Yet, if chosen, these measures are available to support patient choice. Each patient and each family has their own coping skills, varied dynamics, and differing strengths and weaknesses. It is our responsibility to accept patients and families where they are, approaching living and dying in their own way. Patients are allowed to express any emotion, including anger, denial, or depression, without fear of what the hospice staff or volunteers might think. By listening without being argumentative, rationalizing, or becoming defensive with the patient, the hospice team accepts the patients and families' coping mechanisms as effective. Meaning and purpose in life. Death can be a time for personal growth and development. Finding meaning and purpose often involves the religious, philosophical, and emotional components in care of the seriously ill. Spiritual care and support is made readily available to the patient and family. As patients and families find meaning in life, they often find acceptance in death. Quality of life and hope. Hospice promotes hope in order to find quality in life. Hospice respects the patient's need and right for hope and for personal goals. Patients are encouraged to have plans for the future, no matter how short-term the future may be. Hospice believes in keeping patients informed about their illness, but hospice philosophy affirms quality of life and death with dignity. Hospice also symbolizes a community of hope.
Here at Hospice Advantage, we want you to know that each and every member of our healthcare team is specially trained to deal with the symptoms and emotions of terminal illness. The family support team, consisting of a medical director, nurses, social work, chaplain, and volunteer coordinator, among others, meets on a regular basis to review and determine the plan of care for each patient. At these meetings, we also review if a patient may need volunteer services or the types of services needed. We would like to take a moment to review the types of volunteer experiences available at Hospice Advantage. Patient and family support volunteers are individuals who may sit with the dying patient, do the family shopping, or babysit for a child. They may reminisce with the patient or just be a good listener and allow the patient or family to talk. They may also provide services such as cooking or cleaning. They do whatever they can, when and if they can. Nursing home volunteers. People who live in nursing homes are often referred to hospice. Many of them have no local family, or the family is unable to care for the patient because they are working or frail themselves. Many patients have resided in nursing homes for years and consider it their home. Volunteers visit nursing home patients and do some of the things that are done by volunteers in private homes. Bereavement volunteers. Bereavement volunteers may help with scheduling appointments for the counselors or making phone calls or visits to surviving family and friends. A bereavement volunteer must complete bereavement training, and attendance at ongoing support and education meetings are important to stay informed about memorial services, bereavement groups, and bereavement issues. Compassionate care team. These individuals are specially trained to provide comfort at the bedside of a patient who is actively dying. This is a vigil program for patients who have no family or for patients and families who need additional support in the last hours of life. Indirect volunteers are volunteers who provide a wide variety of services that do not involve direct contact with patients. These duties may include office tasks such as stuffing envelopes, filing, or putting information into a computer. Crafting, such as blankets, baking, or helping to create craft items to be used by patients and families, or by helping to organize fundraisers or activities for patients and families. There are many other tasks, however, none of them involve direct patient contact. This is the training that you are completing today. If you have chosen to become a direct care volunteer, you will be provided with additional training after this session is complete so that you may work with our patients and families. Our volunteers at Hospice Advantage are as varied as the patients for which we provide care. Each comes from a different background and has their own reasons for wanting to volunteer for hospice. The most important thing is that you are here to help with our patients. However, there are some qualities that we really like to see in all of our volunteers. Motivation. All of you have some motivation to want to help, otherwise you would not be here. It is important to maintain that motivation and follow through with your commitment to the team. Tolerance. Hospice volunteers must have and be able to exhibit a non-judgmental attitude and approach towards patients, families, and staff of many different backgrounds and experiences. Warmth, empathy, tact, and discretion. Knowing what is said, how it is said, and things that are better left unsaid are essential qualities if the volunteer is to form effective relationships with patients, staff, and families. Dependability. Volunteers are responsible for assessing whether their capabilities and availability fit an assignment and the commitment it entails. It is better to say no when being asked to take on an assignment than to take it and later regret it. Flexibility. Your duties may involve a variety of tasks that are important to meeting the needs of the patients and families. The volunteer must be able to adapt as specific needs arise, because patient and family needs are often complex and ever-changing. Communication skills. A volunteer who is able to listen attentively and communicate what is heard effectively can be exceptionally supportive to patients, families, and staff. Each volunteer is expected to develop and practice these skills in order to facilitate the development of caring relationships with these individuals. Ability to work as a team member. A volunteer is a respected member of the Hospice Advantage team. It is vitally important that all members of the team work together to give families the best possible care. At no time should a volunteer initiate a plan of action that has not been approved by the team. Talents and skills. Past work experiences, hobbies, and interests can be a valuable asset to the volunteer in developing creative ways to enhance the services provided by Hospice Advantage. Sense of humor. It is helpful not to take yourself too seriously. Remember, angels can fly because they take themselves lightly. Laughter can be healing. Don't be afraid to share a joke or a humorous story with others. In becoming a Hospice Advantage volunteer, you are embarking on an exciting adventure, which will not only improve the lives of others, but will also undoubtedly provide you with some important general information to help you in your work with hospice. As a volunteer, you represent Hospice Advantage to staff and community members alike, and it is important to us that we all make a good impression. The following is a list of rules that will need to be followed in order to maintain your status as a Hospice Advantage volunteer. Alcohol and drugs. Hospice volunteers should not function in a volunteer capacity for Hospice Advantage while under the influence of alcohol or non-prescription drugs, or offer any drugs or alcohol to patients, families, or staff. Attire. Hospice Advantage volunteers do not wear a uniform, but they must wear their Hospice Advantage badges and clothing that is suitable for their assignments. Many of our patients, volunteers, and staff are sensitive to unusual odors such as perfumes or aftershaves. Please be sensitive to this concern when you're a volunteer and avoid any fragrances. Identification. An identification badge will be issued to each volunteer to be wearing at all times while volunteering for Hospice Advantage. Duties of the volunteer. Volunteers work under the supervision of the volunteer coordinator in collaboration with other members of the interdisciplinary team. As a volunteer, your duties will be assigned through the volunteer coordinator. Your main role as a Hospice Advantage volunteer is just to be there. There are many things that you are taught to do to help patients and families, but when it is all said and done, the reason you will be remembered is because you were there when they needed supportive caring. When you get your first assignment, you may have doubts as to whether or not you have the skills to be a hospice volunteer. Keep it simple and concentrate on just being there. Communication link. It is possible in the course of your duties that you may observe an important change in the patient's or family's condition, which has not yet come to the attention of the hospice staff. If so, contact the patient's primary nurse, counselor, chaplain, or the clinical service director to share this information. This way, the patient will get the support they need. giving information to patients or family. Volunteers are not to give medical or financial advice to patients or families. If the patient or family expresses a question regarding these issues, the volunteer should direct them to the RN case manager, clinical services director, or another member of the patient care team. Emergencies. If a death or emergency occurs while the volunteer is in attendance, the volunteer should phone the hospice office immediately and help the family by being calm and being there until one of the family support team members arrives. Confidentiality. All volunteers should realize the importance of observing confidentiality concerning the patients and families with whom they are involved. There should be no discussion of their cases or mentioning of any patient or family information other than in direct contact with other members of the hospice team. A signed statement of confidentiality is required of all volunteers. Gifts. Volunteers are prohibited from accepting gifts from patients or families. All volunteers are required to read and sign the gratuities solicitation form as acknowledgement to agreement to abide by this policy. Health. We encourage all volunteers to maintain their health and apprise us of any health issues that may affect their ability to perform assigned duties. If there is a physical problem, it will be at the discretion of the volunteer coordinator whether or not to assign the volunteer to a duty as to not jeopardize the volunteer's health or care of the patient and family. Insurance. Volunteers are covered under Hospice Advantage's general liability insurance policy for third-party injuries or accidents while performing the duties of a hospice volunteer. State law requires that all licensed automobile drivers carry their own liability coverage. In case of an accident, the insured's policy provides primary coverage. Volunteers are encouraged to carry automobile liability limits that provide the best personal coverage. Criminal background checks. All volunteers are required to undergo a criminal background check, and this will be provided by Hospice Advantage at no cost to the volunteer.
Hospice Advantage provides professionals with guidance in adhering to a code of ethics. There are 5 types of ethical decisions: intrapersonal, interpersonal, professional, corporate, and social. Intrapersonal decisions are individual moral decisions based on what a person values and feels is the right thing for that person. Examples of intrapersonal decisions include deciding not to care for a patient who has had an abortion because the caregiver feels it is wrong, or choosing not to be put on a ventilator if it was the only way to breathe as the result of an accident that left you totally paralyzed. Interpersonal decisions are individual moral decisions made with the support of others. An example of an interpersonal decision includes having to decide whether a parent with Alzheimer's disease should be DNR. This decision could be based on medical information about the disease from physicians, input from your family, and past requests made from your parent before they became incompetent. Professional moral decisions are based on a code of ethics, which is part of standards of practice, which is addressed in standards of professional performance. These standards reflect the values and priorities of the specific profession. The American Nurses Association has written standards for home health nursing practice and clinical nursing practice, among others. The Code for Nurses provides parameters within which ethical judgments are made. Ethics provides a morally justifiable approach to help us make decisions when values and morals are in conflict. Ethics helps us to care for or treat others as we would want to be cared for or want our loved ones to be treated. Ethical dilemmas arise when a decision must be made regarding an ethical or moral problem involving 2 or more morally or ethically correct courses of action. Decisions are made based upon principles of autonomy, beneficence, justice, and veracity. Autonomy is the right of a person to choose their own actions based on values and beliefs. Beneficence is doing good, inflicting no harm. Justice is treating a person according to what is fair, due, or owed. Veracity is telling the truth. A dilemma in healthcare arises when care and patient rights are in conflict. The steps in making an ethical decision include clarifying the dilemma, gathering information, identifying options and alternatives, making a decision, and acting and evaluating. Home care providers face ethical issues when care conflicts with patient rights. These rights include the right to participate in medical care, care planning, and delivery, make decisions about care and changes or modifications to care, the right to be informed before making decisions related to proposed care and services, the right to have their family informed of plans and to make decisions if not competent. Wishes of competent adults take precedence over others. The right to have help from an interpreter in communicating decisions. The right to make informed decisions about medical treatments, resuscitation, life-sustaining treatment, and advance directives. Being informed means the patient understands information that applies to him or her, told both benefits and negatives of the treatment, and the patient demonstrates logical coherence in communicating decisions. The right to choose caregivers. The right to voice complaints regarding inadequate care and be involved in resolution of conflict. The right to be discharged to another agency if the company cannot care for the patient properly. The right to confidentiality, meaning not sharing information about the patient with other patients. The right to have privacy respected. Explaining procedures prior to performing the procedure. Ask permission to touch the patient before performing a procedure. Maintain privacy with drapes, closed doors, shades, and have others leave the room. The right to security, meaning having appropriate identification, having patients report missing items, have agencies' number visible, and employees report patient safety issues to supervisor. The right to have property respected. Ask before using anything belonging to the patient. Don't handle patient's property unless necessary. Leave the home as you found it, or better. At this point, we ask that you stop this tape and take a moment to read each of the details of the patient rights and take the opportunity to ask any questions you may have regarding the Patient Bill of Rights. Volunteers have the right not to participate in care or treatment that is in conflict with their cultural or religious values. Your supervisor must be aware of these issues so that there will be no gaps in care or services to our patients. If a patient voices a concern or problem, you are to notify your supervisor and report the problem or concern. You also should let the patient know there is a process to handle concerns and instruct them to contact their nurse case manager or the clinical services director at the office. Policy number 1240, the complaint resolution process, addresses the process for handling conflicts and resolving ethical issues. The company ensures ethical practice in several ways. There are processes in place to ensure that all marketing literature is accurate and appropriate. Literature does not say we provide services that are not available. All bills are accurate and staff addresses clinical issues. Policy number 1240 provides details for a process in which patients can express concerns and how we can help to resolve them. Staff is provided with education at orientation and on an ongoing basis as needed. There is an ethical code of behavior in place and an ethics committee to assist in the resolution of conflicts. Attorneys and financial specialists are consulted as necessary for review of operations, methods, and policies. As a hospice volunteer, acting ethically will ensure patients' rights are respected and quality care and services are provided.
HIPAA stands for the Health Insurance, Portability, and Accountability Act of 1996. The Office of Civil Rights enforces the HIPAA privacy rule, which protects the privacy of individually identifiable health information. The HIPAA security rule, which sets national standards for the security of electronic protected health information, and the confidentiality provisions of the patient safety rule, which protects identifiable information being used to analyze patient safety events and improve patient safety. This act was created to prevent patients against unnecessary disclosure of the patient's health information. The following is a list of circumstances under which and for which purpose your health information may be used and disclosed. Number 1, to provide treatment. Number 2, to obtain payment. Number 3, to conduct healthcare operations. Number 4, for appointment reminders. Number 5, for treatment alternatives. Number 6, when legally required. Number 7, when there's a risk to public health. Number 8, to report abuse, neglect, or domestic violence. Number 9, to conduct health oversight activities. Number 10, in connection with judicial and administrative proceedings. Number 11, for law enforcement purposes. Number 12, to coroners and medical examiners. Number 13, to funeral directors. Number 14, for organ, eye, or tissue donation. Number 15, for research purposes. Number 16, in the event of a serious threat to health or safety. Number 17, for specified government function. And number 18, for workers' compensation. The following is your rights with respect to your health information. Number 1, the right to request restrictions. Number 2, the right to receive confidential communications. And number 3, the right to inspect and copy your health information. Please watch the following scenario. At the end of the scenario, you will be asked to stop the tape and identify ways that the staff could improve their compliance with HIPAA regulation. Please stop the tape and review with each other what went wrong with the above scenario. If you are alone, take a moment to write down 3 things that you feel went wrong. Keep private information secure at all times. The person who was shredding should not be reading the confidential information. The person shredding should not have shared confidential information with anyone not providing care for the patient. While the previous scenario may seem somewhat silly and exaggerated, sharing private information can be very damaging and can result in not only embarrassment to you, but legal repercussions as well. Violation of this law can lead to fines and jail time for serious offenses. Some other general rules to follow. If you are walking away from a computer, lock the computer. Don't read information that does not pertain to what you need to do for the patient. Read only what is necessary to provide the services asked of you. Do not discuss any patient unless it is in a private setting and only when necessary to provide care. If you are on the phone, try to keep your voice at a normal tone so that you may not be overheard, or close the door. At the end of the presentation today, we would like you to take the time to read through the HIPAA information provided in your packet. Please feel free to ask any questions, and when you're done, please sign the enclosed sheet indicating that you've received this very important information. While we can appreciate that as indirect volunteers, you will not be communicating with families and patients on a regular basis, we feel it is important that you understand the basics of communication at end of life. It can be frightening communicating with patients and families in such a delicate situation. Fear of what to say, saying the wrong thing, wanting to make them feel better, and having to be involved with high emotions and tears, these are all normal reactions. The situations will become easier for you in your experiences. At the same time, you will inevitably have a difficult situation now and again. Communication is an important aspect of a volunteer's duties, and the following is a few suggestions for better ways to communicate with patients and families. Number 1, always be open. Number 2, listen to them. Number 3, treat them as individuals and allow them to ask questions. Number 4, if you are unable to answer their questions, that's okay. Be honest and relay to the team the question so that it can be answered. Number 5, some good topics to discuss are their past relationships, life review, and personal contributions. Number 6, avoid giving them false reassurance or hope. And number 7, do not say, "I understand," because do you truly understand what they feel? No two people are alike, and therefore reactions to situations will vary. Say statements like, "I can only imagine what this is like for you." Number 8, refrain from comparing your experiences to theirs. People love to tell their story. Listening can be the best form of communication there is. Number 9, in communicating with the patient's families, do not belittle them. Continue talking to them as if they were adults. Number 10, respect them for the people that they are. Remember, they have what you need in order to do your job. Patients and families can be an overflowing wealth of information and stories. Be respectful and genuine when communicating with our families. Always keep the family and patients involved in the decision-making process. Effective caregiving involves active listening to our patients and families who are coping with dying and helping them identify and meet their needs. The dying patient also has needs. They will need to be reassured that they will be provided comfort during their difficult time. Also, they need to feel a sense of control. One's independence is the most difficult thing to give up. The patient's body may be shutting down, but their mind may remain intact. Therefore, keeping in control is the only thing they can do. Remember, people who are dying are still alive and have unfinished needs which they may want to address. There can be problems when communicating with our patients and families. They are denial, lack of preparation, high emotions, and their life goals being interfered with. Again, providing active listening to them and validating their feelings will assist them in the process to achieve acceptance. As time goes on with the dying process, patients will begin delegating their control to a trusted loved one. As their disease progresses, their focus may change. They may show a reduction of emotions and seem very calm or not interested. Continue talking to them. You may hear fascinating stories from the patient. They may explain to you what they are feeling or what they are experiencing. There may be a sense of confusion during this conversation, but you will gain great insight into the process your patient is enduring. The conversations you have can be very rewarding. Cherish the moments you have with our patients. Remember, for you, it is an honor to be invited into their homes and be part of this experience. It will allow you to grow into a stronger, more confident person. All of this will assist you in meeting the needs of your next patient or family.
There are no shortcuts in acquiring the knowledge base and skills for understanding and responding to the needs of hospice patients. After all, end-of-life issues are made up of many facets. Reactions to grief may be influenced by such things as age, gender, physical and emotional health, economic status, reactions to past losses, physiological and religious beliefs, and coping styles. The purpose of this information is to help you to understand the nature of the dying process and what our patients may be going through. Emotional reactions and fear of the dying patient. Dying individuals struggle with many of the same feelings as mourners after a death. The same process of grief must occur. There may be a need to identify losses, express feelings, review life experiences, and they may need to draw to a close any unfinished business. Patients may require permission to grieve from loved ones and caregivers. Some of the common fears experienced by patients are anxiety, the fear of the unknown, the fear of loneliness, the fear of loss of family and friends, the fear of loss of self-control, the fear of loss of body parts and disability, the fear of suffering and pain, the fear of sorrow, anger and hostility. More often than not, angry feelings cover up the more painful feelings of anxiety, helplessness, and hurt. And patients may also experience guilt and shame. Caregiver issues. The patient with a terminal illness has a huge impact on the caregiver system. One aspect of caregiving cannot change without consequences in other areas. For instance, if the patient was the decision maker in the home and due to the terminal illness is no longer able to do so, another caregiver may need to take charge of responsibilities and decisions. As the terminal illness progresses, it is not unusual for the patient to become more dependent and caregivers to receive more responsibilities. While caregivers will experience various emotional reactions, they also experience various physical symptoms that may include shortness of breath, changes in sleep and appetite patterns, gastrointestinal problems, and fatigue. Because working either indirectly or directly with the dying can be emotionally draining, the importance of self-care cannot be understated. The following are some suggestions that will help the Hospice Advantage volunteer stay at their best. Acknowledge the significance of your role as either an indirect or direct volunteer with patients and the effect on you. Debrief with other professionals who have experienced similar situations in order to normalize the experience. Remember that being strong and coping well does not mean the absence of emotions. Allow yourself time to grieve. Allow others to support you emotionally. Remember to take time to renew yourself through meditation, prayer, music, beautiful scenery, or other healing activities which are meaningful to you. And focus on making one change at a time. Hospice affords volunteers the ability to touch others in critical moments of life. It is through self-discipline, professional commitment, and loving compassion that patients and caregivers will be touched in positive ways during the dying experience. Whether you are an indirect or direct care volunteer, you are helping in the lives of all patients and caregivers that we have the privilege to serve. No one can become a skilled hospice volunteer by simply reading material in an orientation course. It takes mentoring and having these skills demonstrated by experienced staff, and an opportunity to practice those skills under the supervision of a knowledgeable supervisor. But most of all, it takes a desire to learn and a heart that cares. There are no shortcuts in becoming a skilled hospice staff. The rewards of making a caring difference in the lives of patients are tremendous and must not be discounted.